I'm Shobha Vishwanathan of the Indiaspora team, and it's my pleasure to introduce the next panel, which is fittingly titled Trust or Profit. And the three people who are going to come on are Navrina Singh, founder and CEO of Credo AI, Bhakti Vithlani, founder and CEO of BigSpring, and the moderator for the session is Aakrit Vaish. All their profiles are available in our speaker agenda, but I asked Aakrit yesterday, what are the two things that I should definitely share about him today? And he said, he has invested in 100 startups, and he has started an NGO for tech entrepreneurs in Mumbai, and he's a community builder, like many of us in this building here today, in this room here today. So please come on stage, the three of you.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction. We also chatted about that you will not say those things, but thank you anyway. Um, so, great. Thank you so much, guys, for having us. And very excited for this session, which is aptly titled Trust or Profit in AI. Maybe we'll start with quick introductions. My name is Aakrit Vaish. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Haptik. We are one of India's largest AI platforms. Mike?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Navrina Singh, founder and CEO of Credo AI. We are an AI governance software platform that helps you figure out risk within your AI systems and also helps you get to compliance.
And hi, everyone. I'm Bhakti Vithlani. I'm the founder and CEO of BigSpring. We're an AI-powered revenue acceleration platform. And we take on revenue acceleration specifically through people productivity. So we everboard, not onboard, but everboard people at the speed of innovation to help companies grow their revenue.
Great. Awesome, guys. So, we went over yesterday a lot of the stuff that we wanted to talk about. I have changed everything so that there's no prep at all. This is going to be totally impromptu. But no, in all seriousness, maybe, let's start a little bit with talking about the title of this panel, which is, so first, what does trust in AI mean to you?
Wow, we are starting with a loaded question.
Yeah, get to it.
Yes, let's get into it. It's interesting because there's no one common definition of trust, and there is no one common definition of truth. So for us at Credo AI, we deeply think about trust in AI is really about what does good look like for you as an organization, and that can really vary. So just to give you an example, if you are an organization that is in financial services and is deeply paying attention to regulatory frameworks, in that case, what does good look like to you might be compliance. However, if you are in a nonprofit space where you are using extensively artificial intelligence to make sure that fairness is a core component of how AI serves the purpose, in that case, fairness and how this biases basically emerge in the system could be what is your definition of trust. I think at the end of the day, what is really critical is if you are using artificial intelligence across your organization, whether you're buying it or building it, you cannot get to profits without having that transparency and trust with the end users. And I think that's the key component to focus on.
Bhakti?
Yeah, I'd like to echo on that. So at BigSpring, as I mentioned, we're focused on people productivity. Our mission is equip people to be productive at work in a rapidly changing world. And for us, therefore, trust is all about building trust with the end user, the person. We're an enterprise platform on the face of it, and we work with some of the biggest companies, SAP, Google, Cisco, and so on. But really, we're in it for the user, and we're very passionate about let's start building enterprise technology that actually is built for the user and not the buyer. A lot of building trust in AI is actually about the UI. So we frequently think about how do we take inspiration from the best consumer platforms out there. Our inspiration is YouTube. We've all been there to learn how to do something. So we've got this very amenable front end in YouTube, and then under that, a very powerful AI engine to serve up the most relevant things that a person needs for their job to actually help them build practice through proficiency through practice. So, we don't track an actual conversation they're having with a customer, but rather we help them to practice sort of for it. And a big part of what we do is also help people exchange best practices and learn from each other. So ultimately, trust for us is about UI, about connecting with that user. And frankly, we're going even beyond trust to really use AI to unlock human potential. We've got this very horizontal platform that allows anyone to become everything, anything. And we've built for that because ultimately, when you have mobility for users, that's mobility for enterprises. Trust at the user builds trust at the enterprise level and allows, companies to invest more and more.
Yeah, so great points, right? And let's double dip a little bit on that. So, in our experience, and I'm precisely along the lines of Bhakti, what you just said, this is the typical journey I've seen of an enterprise customer adopting AI, which is, you go to them and you tell them that, hey, listen, I have this AI solution, and the excitement level is max at that point, right? Which is, oh my God, I want it tomorrow. They sign up, the order typically comes very quickly. But the journey from there till actually pushing the button and going live can be fairly long. And one big hurdle they have to cross in that journey is this hurdle of trust, safety, and almost this nervousness that, oh my God, if I hit this button, what will happen to me? So, at BigSpring, I was, looking up some of the work you guys have done. You work with so many companies, particularly in areas like revenue acceleration. What have you seen are ways in which you've been able to get past that hurdle with your customers? And what are you learning more and more as you're doing it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we are all about overcoming that inertia and that skepticism by encouraging companies to do fast trials. So literally, we have a platform that you can launch in a week. In fact, we just recently started with SAP. So 6 weeks into meeting us, they said, we want to do this. And 2 weeks after that, they were actually live with users. So that's an example where a big fan of take your no regrets move, pick a use case based pilot, ring fence your blast radius, and then get going and see the results. As I
with a smallish customer
yes,
base.
exactly. Start with we don't intend to start up with SAP globally, but rather pick a very practical use case with a defined group of people, defined, success criteria, and get
Can I
started
ask you, what if something goes wrong and I get fired?
I think by definition, it wouldn't be like that, and there'd be a lot of layers. So basically, we have a very iterative platform. We have a very iterative sort of approach with the platform. So for instance, let's take this example, right? They want to equip their sales teams for a series of products, and it would start by launching campaigns with that user. And so you'd launch one campaign, you'd prompt people to practice with proficiency. There's a lot of checks and balances along the way for you to see what's happening. It's not just, a lot of companies start by being very excited about AI, and then they ask us, can we fully automate this? Every single time when rubber hits the road, they will ask, actually, can we curate this? Can we have a human in the loop?
Interesting.
And that's really basically how they have built in the checks and balances. But, the other piece of it is, so, that's how we're building trust with the company, which is try this and you can curate it. You can see for yourself.
That's very interesting. It's not automation, it's curation, which is getting over the...
Exactly, absolutely. It's not automation, it's curation. That's absolutely how companies are going. And then the other piece of it is because there is so much, frankly, fatigue, companies have bought all these different tools and they're all just lying there, nothing's getting used. So our whole model at BigSpring is focused on outcomes. We only charge for active users. The company would buy a plan, so they're buying active users, not seats. And that gives them the comfort that this is actually going to be an investment that gets their ROI.
Got it. Okay, so Nivriti, jumping the Q2 from that, we were talking a lot about outside, and even over the last couple of days, with some of the work you do at Credo is all around governance, right? And I guess to, follow from what Bhakti just said, one of the ways in which maybe as an enterprise leader, I can prevent myself getting into trouble is using great governance frameworks and a platform. Would love if you can touch upon that, okay, look, what does even good governance for an enterprise mean when it comes to AI? It's a topic that people shy away from because there's so much to it.
So first and foremost, I'm going to demystify something for you. Governance is not just about not getting in trouble. Actually, governance is the cornerstone of getting your AI into production and making sure that failure rates are reduced and making sure you can actually build trust with your end customers.
So I wrote down right before this, which I think you summed up in a very good way, is that governance in AI is a feature, not a bug.
I would say it's a core capability to actually make AI happen. And so just to underscore what that really means is, Credo AI platform basically helps organizations do three things really well. The first thing is we help you align on what does good look like for your organization. And as you can imagine, the definition of good, as I mentioned, can really vary. So the alignment within our software happens through codification of regulations across the globe, whether it's coming from Europe or US or anywhere else, or it comes from standards like NIST, ISO, and others, or it comes from company policies, because as you can imagine in generative AI, and especially among the LLM providers, there's a need right now for self-assessment. So they are defining their own set of guardrails. So what we do is we help organizations align on, first and foremost, what does that good look like for them? And we codify that within our software. The next step is once you have that codification, sort of like mechanisms and measurements, you go and test your entire AI system. And one of the key things to understand is in artificial intelligence, and especially in generative AI, I'm sure you've been hearing that whole day, is the foundation models are dual purpose. So as a result of which, you have to really focus on the application within which these foundation models are being used. And so we govern at the use case level. And so when you're governing at the use case
Sorry,
level—
who's responsible for all of this? Is there like a compliance officer? Is this owned by the business units?
Great question. I would say it depends upon the organization. One of the interesting things we are finding in AI governance is a very multi-stakeholder endeavor. So even though if it's your chief data officer and their group, you will always see the governance teams and the data science teams actually collaborating on making sure that you have that continuous oversight. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about, oh, did you not meet your security or robustness parameters, but it is about, oh, are you exposing your organization to reputational damage or
But
regulatory
do the compliance teams at enterprises understand some of this stuff? Because half of us struggle to right now.
Yeah, no, great question. And I think this is where there is a massive, what I like to call an oversight deficit, which is resulting in a trust chasm. So how do you actually provide a software that enables non-AI experts like the compliance teams, policy teams, and risk teams to come and sort of interrogate the outcomes from your data science teams or from these third-party generative AI systems? And so this is where Credo AI software really shines, because you can be a non-AI expert, but you can actually understand the failures within your AI systems and sort of correlate that to your business outcomes. So going back to what Bhakti was stating, which is really critical, is at the end of the day, when you are building an application for an end user, whether it is customer support or whether it is marketing, or in case of government, situational awareness, you need to make sure that your failure rates in productions are really minimum, and it is not impacting the demographics in certain unfair ways. And that's how you build trust consistently.
Great, that's amazing. Switching to, we had two topics, right? Trust and profit. So let's switch to profit, which maybe half the audience might be more interested in. Nivriti, I'll start with you because we were talking about this earlier, which is, what does profit in AI mean to you? Which is, sure, there's like the P&L level of profit, right? But I think a lot of us over here, in keeping with the theme of the day, which is AI for social good, when we're thinking about profit, it's much more than just economics. And you were mentioning to me a little bit about how we should think of outcomes.
So I think there's two views, right? And I'll share perspective from our enterprise point of view as well as from startup point of view. So I'm a big believer. I think 30 to 40% of the startups that exist today won't exist tomorrow. And the reason—
In AI or in general?
In AI.
Okay, that's,
And
thank
especially
you.
this year. And the reason for that is they're just focusing on generative AI and trying to get excited by these LLM capabilities and weave all those in, and are now dependent very heavily on some of the top hyperscalers, right? And as a result of which, they've sort of missed the opportunity to build that moat for themselves. I truly believe one of the ways that they can actually build that moat is if they are bringing in that responsible AI perspective to even shine in the space. And now if you flip that to the enterprise user, what we are finding is organizations that are doubling down on bringing this oversight and governance early on in the process. We have customers like MasterCard, Booz Allen, Amazon, and others, And what is fascinating is when they deliver AI services to their end customers, and along with those AI services, if they provide these transparency reports, how these systems were built, if they were using third-party systems, how did they test those systems, what were their definition of what that good looks like, what they are finding is success in, one, retaining customers longer. They are able to attract more new customers. And there's an indirect impact as
great
well
point.
in terms of employee, staying with that particular organization. So I think in terms of governance, there's a narrative shift that needs to happen where actually governance is not a speed bump in innovation. It is a springboard that actually helps you go faster, because in this age of AI, it's not just using AI that's going to help you be a winner, it's how you use that AI and how you're being transparent around that use.
That's a great point. So I think just to summarize, what you're basically saying is one way in which emerging startups can differentiate almost on the product level is by bringing in extremely high governance standards, because that's exactly what large enterprises are looking for. And that's perhaps what maybe the larger incumbent companies may not be able to solve for, because they are building stuff at the infrastructure level.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I do want to underscore, so I sit on President Biden's National AI Advisory Council. And so we are advising United States on thinking about what does good policymaking look like. And I heard some comments this morning, which was policymakers can never keep up with innovation. And by the way, that's a true statement. That's a fact. But what is happening right now, for example, in Europe, which we've been very involved with the upcoming EU AI Act that goes into effect this June, we are really making sure that there is a mechanism that prevents regulatory capture by some of the big tech companies and makes it easy for startups to use compliance as a competitive advantage. So I think there is a mindset shift that needs to happen, because many a times when we talk about profit, the idea is it's powered by innovation. Actually, that's false. It's powered by trust, which obviously has to be combined with good innovation as well.
It's a great point. So Bhakti, in what you're building at BigSpring, is compliance and governance key piece of your go-to-market?
Absolutely. In fact, I'll start
Mike
by
is good.
commenting on profit, and then I'll also talk about how we think about compliance. So we lead with revenue acceleration. It's profit in extremely black and white terms. Really, the reason we do that is, what we're taking on is companies investing in people, and traditionally, historically, that has been considered a discretionary BS expense. It's the right thing to do, but it's not the business critical thing to do. And we're leading with revenue acceleration because we are completely flipping that equation on its head. And just to use a metaphor that we always use is, every business is focused on its business metrics, its CRM data and all of that. And we describe that as, okay, that's your game scoreboard. What we're building is the practice engine to get your athletes in shape for the game. And what we're giving you is the practice stats that you can then map to the game stats. So we're giving companies a very, very concrete leading indicator for dollar profit. And that gives them the conviction. And we have seen this, they start to see it when they start to see it come alive, So Google has doubled their sales productivity. Cisco has seen a 216% uplift in upsell. Pfizer's gone to market 9 times faster. And that is profit for the company, which is ultimately profit for the user, because now the company is investing more and more in them and getting them very rapidly equipped to stay compliant. Now, the other thing about, how we think about governance and compliance. So I mentioned, we are a big fan of let's do fast experiments, ring fence the blast radius, pick sort of a pond that you can work in, and it isn't going to be catastrophic or anything like that. And, stepping back, when I sometimes listen to these conversations, right, I step back and think about, okay, let's go back in time during the Stone Age when the wheel was invented, right? So there were tools that existed, and then the wheel was invented, and that was an inflection point, and it was startling just like AI is today. And I think people probably wondered, this is so fast, should it exist? And then they went to, this is so fast, I need it. And then came basically, the inventions from, I don't know, the chariots to the bicycles to the cars to the planes. And I think governance needed to come in order for those inventions to take place, but then those inventions informed governance and sort of created the next sort of wave. So when the wheel was invented, we did not envision traffic lights and road signs and brakes and things like that, right? That came along the way. And that's how we see it. This is an iterative process. I fully agree with what Navrina is talking about purely from an operator perspective. I also, we're both very active with the World Economic Forum. I sit on their AI Governance Alliance, specifically with the Responsible Applications and Transformation Group. which is focused on applications and transformation with that responsibility lens. And again, you have to start by thinking about, okay, what do I need to take into account? But we don't know what we don't know. Just like when the wheel was invented, we didn't know about traffic lights. And therefore, we've got to keep having that conversation and have this healthy tension between experimentation and governance.
Yeah. I think the one thing that sort of is coming out from these conversations, which something even I've been spending time thinking about, is that compliance and governance, and in your example of the wheel and the traffic light, right? Maybe it's not going to be sequential when it comes to AI, right? We will respond. AI will be responsible by default if it has to be successful. AI will have to be, compliant and governed right out of the gate rather than, okay, look, let's do this now and come back to it later.
We'll carry forward this example of wheels and freeways that everyone's been bringing. And I think there's right now a mechanism that we've seen work in policy. If you think about this freeway and you have the cars going at full speed, but then you have these massive trucks, which could be high risk for that freeway, that you pull to the side for the weighing stations. And so what we are seeing in policy that is emerging, which I really like, especially with the EU AI Act, is something called as a risk-based framework, which is not only looking at the criticality of the impact of these AI applications. As an example, if you're going to be using facial recognition for surveying your citizens versus if you're going to be using it in HR for hiring decisions, or you're using it, let's say, for marketing just to create fun avatars, those are all very distinct level of risk for an end user. So in the first case, obviously surveillance, that's like impacting human rights. Whereas if you start thinking about hiring decisions, that's impacting you as an individual. Whereas marketing, okay, it can be low risk. So one of the things that we are seeing, and as enterprise leaders, all of you should be thinking about, is how do you actually provide that risk framework for your applications? And the things that can go really fast on this freeway are the low risk applications. So you can literally have what we call human out of the loop oversight for that. Whereas when something is a truck, which is really critical because you could lose business like that in the case of, I know some folks here from Google, but Gemini was a great example of when it sort of changed the historical context of United States history. That is a big mishap because you end up losing $100 billion in market cap within a day. So how do you actually take that truck off to the side and start managing the risk? And for that, what we basically propose is something called as human at the helm oversight. So one of the things that I think businesses can start doing is, even on those governance, having parameters of where humans should be involved versus what can be automated in terms of governance to really get the ROI that everyone's looking to get from AI.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, like you said, in Google's case, can cause you lose you a lot of money, or get you banned in countries, right? Okay, so I think one last question, which I liked in the morning in one of the sessions, which I think is very relevant for our conversation, is we love predictions, right? We love future gazing. So maybe Bhakti will start with you. With respect to specifically this topic around trust, safety, compliance, governance, one prediction or thing you think is going to happen over the next 1 year, that if we look back a year from now, we'll be like, okay, look, that came true.
Yeah, absolutely. So my prediction is that the confluence and the augmentation of AI and humans is actually going to augment trust and augment and reduce biases. Let me give you a very concrete example just to explain this. So I mentioned we're a platform that's very focused on practice. For instance, a salesperson can practice their pitch on BigSpring and receive feedback from human and AI. All of this practice can come together in a dashboard for a company, and they can look at their entire practice gallery. So for instance, they could look at 100 sales pitches, and human and AI can give feedback, and humans are going to be subject to the biases that we are, and AI is typically using sort of our input to train itself, so that could be a bias as well. However, now we can use generative AI to transform some of those pitches, so make a woman's pitch a man's pitch, and a man's pitch a woman's pitch, and things like that. And you can now look at what the human feedback and responses and be more sensitized to, hey, these segments of population are more subject to discrimination over here, for instance, or more subject to, sort of poorer scores and things like that. So that input and that hypervigilance that AI can now access assess at scale is actually going to work in our favor because it's going to help us to become more self-aware and for AI to become more aware about what to look out for. So that's my prediction. You know, the confluence of human and AI is actually going to strengthen and augment trust.
I truly hope that comes true.
In this fast pace of AI, I am very nervous to make any prediction
That's
because
the whole
things
idea.
can change
You can't ask
very
ChatGPT.
quickly. Yes, you can ask ChatGPT and get all of it wrong. I would say that concretely what we are going to see by the end of this year is Global 2000 enterprises are going to have a line item in their budget for AI governance and risk management as a core priority. And the second thing that we're going to see is emergence of a specific role within an enterprise, which is going to be responsible for AI governance, especially bridging that non-AI expert and AI expert gap. So those two things I predict are going to happen by the end of this year.
On the second one, what skill sets does somebody need to have for the role like that, asking for a friend?
Yeah. I think as technologists, sometimes we shy away from understanding or getting into policies because it's seen as political. I actually think that is not going to help you get that job. I think you really need to have a really good understanding of AI. You don't have to be an expert, but bring your expertise to AI and also have a very good understanding of global regulations and policies to thrive in that role.
Awesome. This has been a lot of fun. Do we have time? No, she's standing there with a wrap-up board. Sorry, we don't have any time. But we'll all be around for any further questions or conversations. Thank you so much, Nivriti, Bhakti. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much.